Yeah, so we have, so thank you again for coming to our fast fashion event. We have a large array of quick 10-minute lightning talks from a variety of speakers, as well as quick DIY demos. So we're really excited to have you guys here. So I know first on the list was Mila. So if you wanted to get us started, so I know for sure Mila and then Carissa, you would be right afterwards. Okay. Great.
Yeah, could I have access to share my screen? I have a PowerPoint slide to share.
I just enabled it.
Cool. Okay, thanks. Can you all see my screen? Is it big? Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about intersectional sustainability in fashion. I think the solution to fast fashion is always sustainable fashion, but even sustainable fashion can be a little tricky. And yeah, so we'll get into that and talk a little bit about that. And that's where I specifically talk about. So a little bit about me. I am a senior at Duke University. I'm creating my own major, philosophy of the fashion industrial complex. I consider myself a sustainability activist with a concentration in fashion, with experience in fashion design, costume design, personal styling. I am an intern at Remake, a nonprofit created to just basically have a better fashion future, and a project lead for Runway of Dreams, which empowers people with disabilities through clothing, and really working on making adaptive clothing. So just a quick slide to tell you a little bit about me and how I even got into this kind of work. All of the stuff that I do led up to this. So first, talking about what is intersectional sustainability. Sustainability itself has become somewhat of a buzzword. People are like, oh, I'm a sustainable brand, or I'm doing this sustainable thing. So let's break down what intersectional sustainability means. And that means that it's being held up by these three pillars of sustainability. So environmental, social, and economic. And so when you say sustainability, people often think about the environmental as in like making sure you're not doing things that are harming the environment, and that basically nothing you're doing is degrading the environment in any way, very simply put. And then social is one that's usually not talked about a lot, but making sure that there's human rights involved and that people aren't being treated unfairly. And then, of course, economic, another more commonly used one, as in like the longevity of a program, business, company, etc. So then what does this have to do with fashion? So from garment production to consumption, fashion is just very unsustainable. We have things like unpaid labor, which is going to fall under social sustainability, carbon emissions, which is going to fall under environmental, and then overproduction kind of falls under social, because overproduction is to deal with overconsumption, but also overproduction as far as environmental and economic. And then especially with fashion, usually a company incorporates 1 to 2 legs of sustainability, but usually not all 3. And so what this will look like is, for example, we have the Forever 21, which is very, very, very economically sustainable. They have the plan for how they're going to, even though they just went through bankruptcy, but that's a whole nother story. They have the plan for how they're going to continue, and basically creating this customer that always has to come back, because you're able to get the cute top for $15, but within a few months you have to come back and get it again. And that's where the economic sustainability starts to show itself. But they're not environmentally or socially sustainable in their practices. Then on the other hand, you may have a company like Reformation, which is very known for their environmental sustainability. All of their things are made with all of their products are made with clothing. My bad. All of their clothing is made with products that are environmentally sustainable. But you're going to find that they're not always socially sustainable. They're not always paying their workers. In addition, they are not always economically sustainable, in that their products are through the roof expensive, and the average consumer does not have access to them. And so that's why it's kind of really important that when we're talking about sustainable fashion as like a response to fast fashion, we're talking about intersectional sustainability, because it's important to incorporate all 3. Otherwise, we're not really talking about sustainable fashion. And then, so why should we care about intersectionality? So without it, there is a disjunct in messaging. So what that looks like is people are saying we care about people and the planet, But that's not always the case unless you're really looking at an intersectional sustainable company. We have a lot of companies who are saying that they're here for people on the planet. Specifically, this is a pretty common, you may see different variations of it, but this is a pretty common statement used by sustainable fashion brands. But they may not be doing anything as far as being civically engaged, or just making any sort of difference beyond what they're possibly trying to do. And simply, it's also the right thing to do. We should all, as humans, try to be intersectional in our sustainability. So at this time, there are no major companies that achieve intersectional sustainable fashion as I've designed it, the three-pronged. But here's what we can do as individuals. As this presentation comes to a close, I always like to talk about what we can do and what that looks like. So we can buy sustainable fashion, but do your research. Because like I've said before, there are no companies that really fully achieve sustainable fashion, but there are companies that are, coming up to the bar. But just because it says sustainable fashion, that doesn't mean that it is actually sustainable in any sort of way. So make sure you do your research. A big thing is like buying secondhand or going to thrift stores. Usually the workers somewhere along the pipeline are being mistreated when it comes to thrift stores. So that's the kind of thing I'm saying, like, even though inherently thrift stores are sustainable, it's always making sure you take the time and do your research. Living and then living sustainably in everything we do, that really is how we can be intersectional on a personal level, as in not just looking at fashion, but just thinking about it as a whole. That was a big thing for me. I was really into sustainable fashion. I only bought from thrift stores and things, but then I wasn't being sustainable in my daily life. So it was kind of counterproductive what I was doing in the fashion space. And these are some Instagram accounts that I really love. Green Girl Leah, Aja Barber, and Brown Girl Green, who all talk about intersectional sustainability. And none of them are specifically fashion related, but the thing about sustainability is you can see how it's related to fashion or any thing that you're interested in. And then, are there any questions?
Are there any brands that you recommend?
I only shop secondhand. I think that it takes a lot of research to find a brand that you personally can feel comfortable with as far as matching your values. And I just haven't found that right now. So I only do shopping secondhand. I have been no new clothes for about a year and a half now, and I'm probably not going to turn back, because then I'm able to get the brands that I want that may not be as sustainable, but it's secondhand, so it's sustainable in that same process.
What is your favorite part of kind of coming up with your own major, and like how has that process been for you?
It's been really hard. So Duke doesn't have a fashion program at all. So creating a major in fashion has been decently hard to try and find where I can take fashion classes, how I can relate things that don't necessarily relate specifically to fashion. And because of that, my major has really become kind of like a fashion exists in every different social science that we have in the Duke department. It's just we don't talk about it. So for example, talking about how psychology, I talk a lot about the psychology of brands and things and how that affects children specifically. So that's kind of, I think that answered your question. How I've changed it so that it's able to fit into the environment. And my favorite part about it, just doing what I want to do. Like I said, if I wasn't able to do the program too, I probably would have been a sociology major with like a visual arts kind of thing, which is interesting to me, but not necessarily pinpointing exactly what I'm interested in doing. So finding what I want and doing that.
I'm taking a like sustainability and health class right now, and so it's interesting the ties that we make to fashion, because one of the most recent readings I had to do talks about minimizing the amount of clothes that you own, because it can be so overwhelming to have so many choices. And I think that's another aspect of fast fashion that really can be detrimental to our health, because you see so many new things all the time.
Yeah. then that's exactly, yes, welcome to my major, because then you take it further and you say, well, what is the psychology of having so many clothes? What is the sociology and why is society pushing us to have all these different options? What is the economic econ kind of way of understanding how brands are using finances and markets in order to understand how to target certain people and make them keep buying clothes? So yeah, it relates to everything.
I really like how you pointed out the intersectionality of fashion because I'm a fashion major myself. But there's so much more that goes into it than just designing clothes. Like you have to think about the business aspect of it, psychological aspect of it. There's just so many different avenues and it's not just about making clothes, you know? So I really like how you pointed that out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mila. That was such an amazing presentation. And for the sake of time, we're going to be moving on to Carissa. And then if you guys have any follow-up questions for Mila, please feel free to drop it in the chat. And Mila, if you don't mind, if you see anything, just feel free to answer back in the chat with any questions that come up, okay? Awesome. So Carissa, you are up next.
Okay, hi guys. My name is Carissa Chacon. I'm a senior at Wayne State University. My major is fashion design and merchandising, and I also have a minor in Latin American studies. So I don't have a presentation, I kind of just have like a quick little chat. So first I wanted to introduce like fast fashion companies, because I know a lot of the times some people are like, well, what is fast fashion? What do you consider it? Typically, kind of like Mila just said, Forever 21, and like, you know, just high brands that are like constantly coming out with different trends, different clothing, like it just never stops. Like it's always just go, go, go. And, you know, that can be detrimental to the environment. And a lot of the times when they are making clothes for these companies, they don't use that extra scrap of fabric. So to put it into perspective a little differently, because I'm a fashion design and merchandising major, I sew a lot. So I kind of want to get like a fabric that's good enough for me that will give me room to, like, if I make mistakes, I can go back and cut another thing out. But at the same time with those companies, they just take that scrap and just throw it away. So that can be very detrimental to the environment, and obviously that causes pollution and whatnot. Not only that, but I wanted to point out the labor in fast fashion companies. So these labors, like it's hard labor, they're unfair conditions, and they don't pay them well enough. They don't give them, maybe they don't give them a lunch break or bathroom break. So to take that into perspective, it's really hard to like put yourself into that mindset and think like, wow, like these people are making these clothes and they're not like giving them those right conditions, you know? Let's see. Another thing that I wanted to point out was some companies will try to trick you into thinking like, oh, this is sustainable. Like we care about the environment. We care about people who care about the environment, you know? But for example, H&M, they give you 15% off, a 15% off discount if you give them a bag of clothes that are recycled. So there's a lot of pros and cons with that, because if you think about it, you give them a bag of clothes, they give you 15% off, and then when you go to purchase those clothes with that discount, you don't really know if you're getting those clothes that are from the sustainable pile or from the new pile with the brand new fabric that they probably just wasted with. So that can be a little tricky, and it's like a pro and con, and it almost defeats the purpose of it. So I don't know, just wanted to point that out. Some tips to consider when you want to try to be sustainable. I know it can be hard to try to be sustainable and to take into consideration and be mindful about what you're purchasing. But one thing that you absolutely should not do not throw away your clothes. Like, do not throw away your clothes at all. Like, there's so many ways you can save them. You can find another use for it. I know it's hard to, like, let's say you have a shirt and it's ripped. You're automatically going to think like, oh, if you don't know how to sew, you're just going to be like, I'm just going to throw it away or give it away or something. Don't do that. Don't do that. You should find another way to use it. You can make a headband. There's so much more fabric to it. You can do so much with it. And there's so many DIY videos on YouTube where you don't even have to sew. It's like a no-sew thing. So you can make headbands, you can make scrunchies, literally anything. So that's one way to be creative and one way to be mindful about what you're doing. Another thing that I wanted to point out, kind of like what Mila said about where to purchase things. Thrift stores are definitely the way to go. Secondhand stores. Garage sales are good. I mean, you know, like obviously they've been used already, but it's okay. That's one way of being sustainable. And Poshmark too. Like you can find a lot of things that have been used already, but then you're getting them and then you know like they're gonna be like, how do I say this? Like they're gonna be marked down so you get them for a cheaper price, but at the same time you're being mindful about what you're doing and what you're wearing. But I know a lot of the times a lot of people see hand-me-downs as like not less than, kind of less than, like some people are like, oh, I don't want to do that because of whatever reason, but it's okay. Like there's nothing bad with it. It's totally fine. And another thing to consider when thinking about being sustainable in fashion and with clothing, you can do your research. Look at these companies, look at their culture values, and look at all of their values and their company culture and see what you can do, see if it fits for you personally, and then you can just decide from there. So yeah, that's all I have for today. So thank you for having me, and I want to leave the floor open to any questions.
What would you recommend? So like if you like tear your t-shirt or something like that, as I'm notorious for like tearing my clothes. But if you're gonna like if you tore a t-shirt or you have like a clothing item that is really worn down and you know that you shouldn't give it away due to its condition, I guess what are like the best things that you could do to reuse like that material? And especially like if you are like cutting up these pieces, like what could you use those scraps for? I know sometimes like I'll cut like my t-shirts and stuff like that and turn them like into bags, but then I have like these scrap pieces over, like what would be good uses for that as well? So kind of like both ends.
I think for me personally, when I see like something that's torn, like even if it's like the littlest tear, obviously like you can't use it anymore and you might want to like savor it. So what I would recommend is like maybe making like I said, a headband, you can do that. You can have like you can make scrunchies, like there's so many ways to do it. And there's like no sew tricks. Like it's like a DIY no sew, like you know, they have a lot of tips on YouTube for that. Another thing that I would consider is like if you don't know how to sew and you don't know what to do, you can donate fabric. Like you can absolutely donate extra fabric. I know that I want to say there's some thrift stores that offer like recycled fabric. And there's like this place in Detroit, it's called Arts and Scraps. You can literally find anything. So that's like the best way to do it. And I know for some Wayne State classes, like for me, I've had to make clothes out of recycled fabric. So I'm looking for it, like I have to use it. So that's one way to use it as well.
Okay, awesome. So if there's no more questions, thank you, Carissa, for your time and for your knowledge and expertise as well. If you guys have any questions for Carissa, feel free to drop them in the chat. And I know Mila dropped her Instagram, so if you wanted to drop your Instagram or a way to contact you, if anybody had any follow-up questions, feel free to do that as well. Yeah, thank you so much. So the next person that we're going to have go up is Ashley, who is actually going to be doing a quick DIY tutorial, which is really exciting.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ashley. I am a current grad student at U of M. I'm studying landscape architecture, but I'm just into sewing as a hobby. And so I like sew some of my own clothes, and I make quilts and things like that. So I'm going to show you how to turn like an old t-shirt into a skirt. So like, I'll show you. I have this t-shirt. I got it for free in undergrad. It has like my undergrad logo. I wore it once. I'm never going to wear it again. I've had it for maybe 4 years. So it's just been sitting in my closet, and it's just such a waste. And I don't know, might as well just turn it into something else, right? So to start, what you do, I guess I'll show you. So you have your shirt and you have the sleeves. So you just cut a straight line across from like armpit to armpit, basically. I can flip my camera around so you can see. Okay, so yeah, so here's the shirt. I drew a straight line already. It goes from here over to here, and then you cut it. So I will do that quickly. And bear with me because I've never done this before. I'm totally winging it. So yeah, and this is actually super easy. There really isn't, there's like a little bit of sewing required, but hardly. So yeah, I'll show you in a second. Just cutting the shirt. All right, so now here's the top of the shirt. We're gonna set this aside, use it for future projects like Clarissa was saying. And then we're left with like this tube. And at the top, or I guess at the bottom technically of your shirt, there's the seam that has like the little bit of stitching right here, and then a little bit of fabric, 2 layers of fabric. So what you do is you just cut a really small hole on the inside through 1 layer of fabric. And then that's where we're gonna feed our elastic through that will like hold it up. So I'll do that quickly, just like a tiny hole. Okay, and then I have this is a 1/4 inch elastic. And what I did is I like put it around my waist, kind of like pulled it tight to like see what a good fit would be. And then I attached a safety pin to the top so I can feed it through this like hem of the shirt, because this is going to be the waistline. So then all you do is you find your hole that you just cut and stick the safety pin through the hole, and you like fish it through the whole shirt. And then this takes a long time, so we can talk about questions now if you want. I guess I've only been sewing for like 2 years maybe. So I'm still learning along the way. I actually found this idea on YouTube. So YouTube is a really good place to go for ideas if you have like these old shirts or like ideas of things you want to do. But yeah, I also really like, because I kind of hoard fabric, but I go to thrift stores and I see a shirt or something that I really love the pattern, but it might not necessarily like fit me. The clothing might not fit me, but I'm like, I could do something with this and I could make this something that I would really like. That's something that I really enjoy doing, but it is just a little more work, and you have to enjoy what you're doing, I think. But yeah, I think I want to open it up to questions now, just because this is going to take me a little bit and I don't want to like waste any time. So if you have questions about like sewing or I don't know, just anything like that, throw it out there.
I have a question.
Sure.
Have you ever made clothes for your dogs or your cat?
Yeah, so I have 2 dogs and a cat. I made my cat a little like bandana to put around his collar. I just had some like scrap fabric And I was like, you know what, he needs a little bandana to be cute. So I did.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What is your most favorite thing that you've made for yourself?
So I guess probably the last thing I made was this like wrap top. I don't know. It's just like a shirt with 3/4 length sleeves that wraps around the front and ties, which that took me a long time to make because that was a big learning curve for me. Like that was the first big piece of clothing I've really made. But it made me realize how expensive it is to make your own clothes. Like if you go out and buy a new piece of fabric, it's going to be like $20 a yard. And then you need 3 yards to make your clothing. So that's $60 of fabric. Plus it took me maybe like 4 or 5 hours to make this shirt. And then it just makes me think like you go to Forever 21 and you pay for a shirt for $15. Like how can they do that? It just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, long story. I like my shirt I just made. But yeah, oops. So I fed the elastic all the way through, but it's all scrunched up. So I'm trying to even it out a little bit. And this isn't perfect, but so here, this is the top of your skirt now. Here's the whole thing. This used to be your shirt. So now what you can do, since you have both pieces of elastic sticking out, I was just thinking you could probably just tie these if you didn't want to sew. Like if you didn't know how to sew, just tie these two together. I'm gonna try that right now. We're improving. Tie your elastic together and then make sure it's tight. Cut off your extra and then like wiggle the little nub back into the hole. If you can. Maybe this doesn't work. You probably need a bigger hole than I did, but you get the point. I literally just made a skirt in 5 minutes out of an old t-shirt. And it's cute and comfortable. I made one the other day and I like didn't want to take it off because it was so comfy. So yeah, that's what I got. Nice skirt I can wear on a summer day when it's not 40 degrees outside. So yeah, if anyone else has questions, we can go from there.
All right, so I suck. I've never sewn before. I don't know how to sew. I get teased about it all the time, like at home. I usually make my brother sew for me because he knows how to sew and I don't. So I guess like if you were going to learn how to sew, like what would be the easiest thing to do without feeling overwhelmed or like discouraged that your thing came out horrible?
I think probably one of the easiest things that I've made are scrunchies because it's just like one piece of fabric and a little strip of elastic. And it's just like you sew around the outside and feed your elastic through and it's done and it's super easy. I think that would be a good place to start. I've never made a headband, but I assume it would be similar like that. But yeah, there's so many YouTube videos. I would go there. And then if you really get into it, you can start following people on Instagram and things like that. So yeah.
You ever find yourself like getting cut?
I don't think so. Not with sewing. Yeah, I don't know. I've never had that problem.
Okay, I have one more question. I think then after that we'll move on to the next person. But you had mentioned, and I know like both Neil and Chris have mentioned too, that they do a lot of thrifting and they go to thrift stores to find items. I guess like what would be like the best item to get like at a thrift store if you were going to make something else out of that, or is there like I guess you see something like in the thrift store and like automatically there's like really something you think is really easy to make from like those types from like a material like a shirt or like a dress or anything like that. Like do you have any like advice like on things to like us look for while you're in the thrift store if you're interested in creating a new piece of clothing with a thrifted item?
Yeah, I think so. With anything, if you're trying to make something new out of it, you'd want it to be a little oversized. Like look for something that is bigger than what you would need so you have more fabric to work with. So I like going into the men's section actually and getting like men's long sleeve like dress shirts. And you can make, I've seen videos of like making really cute like long skirts out of that or different like ruffly tops from men's shirts. So yeah, that's kind of where I start to look at, but even in the women's section, just like look for things, like seek out things that catch your eye with like the pattern and the fabric, and then just see if it's like oversized enough where you can work with it.
It's so funny because sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Zuli.
I was gonna say real quick. It's so funny because I didn't steal it necessarily. I did kind of ask, but I asked my dad for one of his old T-shirts, and it was this like gray T-shirt that at the end was kind of frayed, and it's like that, like a really basic gray T-shirt, and I just cut it up, made it into a like a crop top, and my friends were asking me, they're like, "Where did you get that shirt? Like it's really cute." And I'm like,
yeah,
it was my dad. I just cut it into a crop top.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a quick question. Do you ever use like fabric glue or do you always just sew stuff?
I've never used fabric glue. I don't know why. It seems like it'd be so much easier, but I just have my sewing machine in front of me, so I just like do it. Also as like a learning thing for me because I'm just trying to like get better and improve my hobby. But I think as a beginner, if you were starting out, you could definitely use fabric glue if you didn't know how to sew and you found something that required a little bit of sewing. So that would be an option for you.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley, for your tutorial. It was really fun. I'm excited. You make me want to make a shirt now out of my old my old T-shirts because I have a ton of
Yeah,
them.
try it out.
Great. So next we are going to be having a video played from somebody that Rihanna submitted and a quick demo that she also did as well. So, and Jordan is going to be sharing that video with us fairly quickly.
There we go. All right. Let me know if you guys can't hear the video.
Hello, my name's Rihanna. I've been sewing since 2012, and I'm going to show you today how to upcycle your clothes. So we know that once we reach the end of our clothing's life, whether there's a hole and we just don't know how to mend it, or it's outdated, whatever, we can either donate, but we know that that shelf life may just end up in the landfill. So I'm going to show you a couple DIYs that will help increase the longevity of your clothes as long as possible. So today I'm going to show you via demonstration how to make a reusable shopping bag or tote bag out of maybe one of your favorite t-shirts or a t-shirt that just may have gotten a hole. And then I'll talk about some other DIYs that you can do. And I'll try to make as many as possible non-sew. So you are looking at the table, and what we're going to work with is a pack of t-shirts because I don't have any clothes that I can cut up at this point. I have purged a lot of my clothing options, but you can use any t-shirt that you have, a sleeping shirt, whatever. So I'm gonna open this up. We have some t-shirts. I know the first initial thought you probably are seeing is potential for tie-dye. And tie-dye can also be used on just basic shirts using bleach. If you have shirts that are dark in color, that may have some holes in it, try to bleach tie-dye it. I have like a picture right here so you can see it. Try to bleach tie-dye it and give it a new life. And holes, distress styles are in at this point. So you can like cut some more holes into it and now it looks purposeful. But I'm gonna talk about the tote bag now. If you don't already have reusable shopping bags, this is a quick way to make a couple. At least something to take down to the farmer's market or to your Myers. So you can not only save money, because some stores give you some money back, but also to reduce the amount of plastic bags that you're using. All right, so taking your shirt and lying it flat, you're going to imagine what a tote bag looks like. You know that there's two straps and you know that the bottom has to be sealed. So all we're going to do is cut off the sleeves, then cut a little opening, and that's it. So you can use sewing shears. This is what I'm going to cut with. But if you have scissors that look like this, they usually cut well. The only scissors that are not going to work are, of course, kitty scissors. So try to have scissors that you can cut through fabric. If you do use shears, just for those who haven't gone through the horrors, never use your shears on paper. Now, because I want symmetry, as you can see, this is a little bit messy. I'm going to fold it in half, end to end. You don't have to do this part. If it's messy, it's messy. I just want it to be a little less jagged of an edge. Hold the straps to the side, and now we're going to work on the bottom. So we have a tank top basically at this point, but now we're going to make it into a bag at the bottom. So what to do is, if you ever were in grade school and had to make those blankets out of fleece and there was just like little tags off of it, that's what you're going to do. So the first thing you're going to do is turn this inside out so that you can see the seams like this. If this camera will ever focus, we can't see it. So you see there's a seam right here. So you're going to turn it inside out. And we're going to cut, an inch up along the seam line on both sides. And I'm not really measuring out the distance between each of these flaps. I would say they're about like 2 to 1.5 inches in distance. Okay. And make sure you cut up the sides too, so they're separated. So there's 2 flaps, just to kind of better show you. 2 flaps. So same with here, we're gonna cut this up the middle, so there's 2 more flaps. Now, again, if you ever have done a blanket, you can also do the method of cutting a hole in between and just pulling it through. That would make a tighter bottom, but to show this method also works. So we're gonna do something simple as knotting the 2 together. Now technically I know with the blanket, this is not how you're supposed to knot it up, but since you're just like trying to seal the bottom, it doesn't matter if you follow a particular pattern. If you do know the patterns, which you can find online or on Pinterest if you want to have a detailed pattern, you can. But since this will be on the inside of your bag, it's not necessarily necessary. And for those who know how to hand sew or happen to have a sewing machine, you would just do 1 straight stitch, or for a hand stitch, a back stitch, just down the bottom. You could even probably do a whip stitch, which hopefully I put pictures up so y'all know what I'm talking about. But nothing. So we have a lot of ties, so that's what the bottom looks like. Looks a little messy right now. So what I'm gonna do first is double knot everything, and then I'm gonna cut the tie shorter. And when it comes to this double knotting phase, I'm just grabbing whatever 2 flaps I see and just tying them together again. So just to build some strength at the bottom. We're gonna turn this right side out again. All right, so now you have a tote bag that can hold your bag of scissors that you're now buying. I'm just gonna throw some stuff in here so you can kind of see the weight of it. There you go. It's just about the size of a grocery bag. The bottom is secure because it's knotted up. And you didn't even have to sew, and it took all under 5 minutes. So that is DIY 1. So something simple that you can do if you have a shirt that you may really like the pattern of, but you just can't fit it anymore. There might be a hole at the bottom. Whatever may be the reason, you can still enjoy the pattern at least through your little tote bag. All right, on to the next one. So what can you do now? We have 2, but what if this is not, you don't want any more shirts, you just need to get rid of it? Or what are you gonna do with all those scraps? 2 things, well, many things you can do. You can make rope or yarn out of the excess scraps that you have. You can use it to make dog toys. I've done that many times. Or you can use them as rags. When my family's clothing reaches the end of its line and there's no way you could make it into something else, my dad might use it as a rag for his auto hobby when he's working with his cars. And you can also use them to help clean, or just use a rag. I lost my train of thought there, but you just use a rag. So I find that's the end of the road, when you're like, you already made the shirt gets ripped up or gets a stain, it's rag time. You can also dye the shirt later. There you go, I'll give you a 360 there. Whenever you're ready for it to be different colors. What do you say? Dye is pretty cheap. You can get it from Joann's or Walmart for about $3. And other things you can do are gonna start showing up right here. So I know I put like a t-shirt quilt here. There's other dog toys, different ways you can cut up your bag to be more decorative. Better ways to cut up your shirt and turn it into a crop top. Some sewing intensive type work, non-sewing intensive type work. And if you see stuff that's like a pattern, say you want to make a bralette or you want to make just pants or shorts, you can just use the t-shirt as fabric. Just because it's already sewn up doesn't mean you can't just cut down the seams and just have that piece of fabric. So there's many possibilities to recycle your fabric and make something new. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed watching, and good luck with your way of building sustainability. Bye.
That was such a cool video. I wish she was here so we could ask her questions. I really want to make a t-shirt bag. I was in the process of actually trying to make one, but in a different way. So that was really cool to see how she was able to kind of turn it inside out and then use like the little frilly ends on the inside as opposed to the outside. So I really like that idea. I think I'm gonna do that with my next one.
I actually want to do that idea too. Like I want to, because like it's something that we can wash too. So like we can use it for grocery shopping and then wash it so it's clean, hopefully, and then I'll use it again.
Yeah, definitely. I don't believe we have any other presenters. So this is the end of our meeting. But thank you everybody that were able to attend. That that are interested in fast and sustainable fashion. And if you have any other follow-up questions, concerns, comments, you can always feel free to reach out to us via our Wolverine Instagram or Facebook pages. And then Carissa and Mila have also dropped their Instagram handles if you have any follow-up questions for them as well. But I know Mila and then Ashley are still on if you guys have any other questions before the end of the night. I know Carissa unfortunately had to head out, but Ashley and Mila are still here if you guys have any questions.
You guys know what people can do with sweatpants or anything that has holes in them? Like I know I had a pair of shorts that I was wearing, and I was at a friend's house helping her paint, and so now there's a big paint stain on the backside. So they just sit in my drawer. I didn't want to throw them away because they were a nice pair of shorts. But do you guys like have any ideas of things that people could do with stuff that like bottoms, pants, and shorts and things like that?
There's a few things you can do. It depends on what you're looking to do. First, you can make the paint look like it's on purpose, as in get more paint and make it into more of a design. I would caution with that one, though. Do it slowly. Don't go kind of wild, because there's like a pretty fine line between looking like it's on purpose and looking like you were playing in paint. You can also cut them into shorts depending on how the sweatpants are. And you could also turn them into, again, how they are. I don't know if this is an option, but turn them more into like a jogger so that it has more of a cuff at the bottom, which may be able to hide the paint stain. And so you can look up all of those probably on YouTube to find an exact tutorial that matches. And one thing I would say about YouTube is don't just like if you see, like, try and find something that looks similar to how your sweatpants are, at least for the style and material, because if you use a different kind with this thing, it won't work out.
I guess this can be posed to either Mila or Ashley, but I guess what's the best advice, and maybe it might be more so Mila, but like what's the best advice you can give, especially college students like us who are interested in sustainable fashion but don't really know what to do and also find the prices of fast fashion very convenient. What are the best ways that we can, you know, slowly integrate more sustainable fashion into our life without us, you know, breaking the price tag? Because I do know sometimes purchasing from sustainable fashion brands can be a little bit more expensive due to the quality as well as the time that it has taken to put these projects together. So what would be your suggestions on that?
I can answer that as well. I would, so one of the things that I've learned while doing only secondhand clothing is that it's a lot cheaper to buy secondhand clothing, and you often get like really cool stuff, like some designer things you can find for like $4 or $5 kind of thing. The only thing that I would say about that though is it takes a lot more time, and because you have to go through the thrift store and really dig through it. So yeah, and so I guess two advice. Like if you have time, definitely get into secondhand. That is something that will be worth your while. You'll find things that are vintage you'll never see again on anybody else, and you pay less than the Forever 21 shirt. The other thing that I would recommend is only buying what you have to, so that if you do need to make that Forever 21 purchase, we're not looking at overconsumption. We're looking at simply just what we need. Because that's like one of the main problems with fast fashion. The thing that keeps it going is like there's this constant cycle of consumption of different kinds of different kinds of things all over and over and over and over, and that's part of what leads to the problem. So don't just walk into Forever 21 kind of aimlessly. I always say Forever 21 because it's a really common one, but into these stores aimlessly just because you want to go shopping. Definitely go in there with a list, be purposeful. So if you do need to buy from Forever 21 or the fast fashion, anything, that would be my advice from that standpoint.
Also, I have something to add, but like Mila and Ashley, feel free to jump in if you guys have any thoughts on this. But another thing, like just thinking about fast fashion, thinking about extending the life of your clothes, a lot of it also comes down to how you take care of it and how often you wash it. Especially with the materials that are being used now. If you do happen to own fast fashion clothing, clothes from fast fashion brands, which I do. And I guess like I didn't really start getting into buying more sustainably or thinking about that until a little bit later. So I know that I have some items of clothing that it's worth my while to wash it every couple of uses and not have to wash it every single time, not only because it'll extend the lifetime, but also it could reduce the amount of microplastics that are being that are entering the waterways. But I don't know if either Mila or Ashley, you guys have any additional like input on how to lengthen your clothing or any tips like that?
I don't know if you have anything to say, Ashley, but this is something that I added the lace to it. And so it was just like a regular just button down kind of shirt. And so when I added the lace to it, it kind of made it a little cuter, changed the lifespan in kind of like, it made it fresh and new. So just another way to do it, but from more of like design standpoint than an environmental standpoint.
Yeah, I honestly don't really know much about extending the life of your clothing. But I wanted to like re-shout out going to thrift stores. Like you can make it like a little outing with your friends, or if you just want some like me time, just go into a thrift store and you can spend like an hour in there and just go through all the clothing and just relax, and you can find some really good things too. Like you'd be surprised. You'll come out and you'll be excited about what you found too, because like you can't just go out into the stores and have everyone wearing the same thing. Like you found something unique. So yeah.
I know, I guess I can kind of answer a little bit. So I know when it comes down to jeans, actually, especially if they are traditional denim jeans, in order to extend the life cycle of those, as well as kind of reduce your environmental impacts, you definitely should not wash them as much as people think you need to wash jeans. I know I have a few friends that do have a good pair of just standard denim jeans. And I think they've only washed them about once a year. The best way that you can take care of your jeans for sure is definitely spot treating, for that to reduce like water waste for washing your jeans, as well as putting them in the freezer to reduce like the odor or smell. Putting them in the freezer acts as a neutralizer of odor on your denim jeans. So that would also be a really great option if you are interested in learning how to extend the lifespan of your jean, because a lot of times jeans do get worn out due to the constant washing of them within the washer. So that is like kind of like a good tip that I've learned, because beforehand I would kind of like run through jeans like crazy. I would always rip them. They would always tear and snag. And I realized that I wash them every time I wear them. In reality, you don't really need to. By putting them in the freezer and then spot treating any like dirt or like smudges or whatever you gotten on your jeans is like a really great way to reduce your environmental impact from just washing a pair of jeans. And I know and then this is where it kind of boils down to it being a little bit more expensive as well, to be a part of sustainable fashion. But there is also a denim jean brand in Detroit. So I believe it's called Detroit, the Detroit jean. Yeah, so it's called, so it's called Detroit jeans. So this is actually like a denim company in Detroit, and they hand make all of their denim jeans. Which is really, really awesome. And they are on the higher end side. So about a pair of jeans does cost $100 usually, or $200. But the really cool and unique thing about that pair of jeans is that they will actually tailor them to your specific body type. So you purchase them, you go in, they tailor it to your waist size. If they are kind of standard like boot cut, they'll also tailor it if you wanted skinny jeans. They'll do their thing and turn them into skinny jeans for you. If there's any like tears, you can also bring them in for, I believe, like $10, $20, and then they'll repair your jeans like new, and they'll look like a brand new pair of jeans. So it is like an investment, and then over time, the cost becomes less and less because you're taking care of a good pair of jeans, and it's reducing your environmental waste, potentially of throwing out constant pairs of jeans and washing a bunch of jeans, as opposed to having just a few set of jeans that you can constantly repair over time due to their quality. I don't know if that sprinkles any insight, but I thought it was really cool when I learned about that company.
I think with that, thank you so much, everyone, for your presentation. Like, all of you were awesome. Have a great day, and check us out on Instagram at Wolverine Manners and on Facebook at Wolverine Manners. But yeah, have a good night.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming. And if you guys have any questions for, Mila, Ashley, Carissa, feel free to reach out to them. I don't know if Ashley, you want to drop any links to whatever you feel comfortable people reaching out to you if they have questions, but feel free to reach out to our guest speakers and presenters on anything that they talked about today, which is really cool. I'm excited. I feel revitalized into making some things. This is like little t-shirt. I made this little baggie, so I'm excited. So this is really cool. Thank you all for coming tonight.